You did it. You put an offer on a home and it was accepted. Congratulations, guys. You're probably ready to start celebrating, except for one thing. Your lender and your realtor want to schedule your closing, and you do not even know what that means. Hi, I'm Bethany, and I'm a realtor with Keller Palmetto in Columbia, South Carolina. I've been helping my own real estate clients for over 18 years, so I know all the things about buying a home. If you want to make your home buying experience a lot easier, first, give me a thumbs up, like this video, and then keep listening because I'm going to dig into the last leg of your home buying journey so that you can attend your real estate closing with confidence. Before we jump into what happens on closing day, I'm gonna make some assumptions here. First assumption is that you have already done a final re-inspection of any repairs that the seller was supposed to do on your behalf. I am also assuming that you have already scheduled for your utilities to be turned on. If you haven't, please do that now. You don't want to be moving in and have no air conditioning or heat, and you definitely want to have running water so you can use the bathroom. Schedule your utilities to be turned on. I am also assuming that you have done a final walkthrough either the day before or the morning of your closing, and I'm also assuming that you have already wired your funds to your closing agent, whether it's a closing attorney or a title company. Your lender should have already provided you with how much you need to bring to closing, and you should have either wired that money to them or you have gotten a certified cashier's check for that amount. So what exactly is a real estate closing? It is the final and last step in the home buying and selling process where the sale is closed. It is the day that the ownership of the home changes hands and that you as the buyer become the new legal owner. Now, this only happens after you sit down and sign a whole bunch of paperwork. It is the culmination of everything that happened behind the scenes with your lender and your closing attorney or title company while you and your agent were doing inspections and negotiating repairs. It typically takes about 30 to 45 days after you are under contract, or if you're in a state with an attorney review period, 90 days. I'm looking at you, New York. So what are some important things that you need to know to expect on closing day? The first thing is that you have to be there. You have to show up. You need to attend closing in person. If you were on the loan or you were going to be on the deed, you need to be there to sign papers. And if you cannot be, then you're going to need to designate a power of attorney to sign on your behalf or make other arrangements for you to come and sign your portion at another time. There are some states, South Carolina is not one of them, where you can sign digitally, but we have not implemented that process here. So be prepared to just show up in person either way. It's also a really important event. You should be there in person if you can. You are going to meet at your closing agent's office, and your real estate agent is going to be able to provide that information for you. Your closing date is decided ahead of time. That should be negotiated in your actual contract. It could potentially get delayed or pushed back or even moved up if you and the seller of the home happen to negotiate that change. And the time of your closing should also be scheduled in advance, and it needs to be at a time that is going to be convenient for both you and the homeowner to come and sit down and sign your papers. What should you bring to closing? Very important to remember to bring a government-issued photo ID. This is something that your closing agent is required to collect and photocopy. They need to verify that the person signing papers is actually you. So if I am buying a home, I have to show my government-issued photo ID to the closing attorney here in South Carolina. He's going to take a copy of it so that he can see, hey, this really is Bethany Way who is signing to purchase this home today. I also encourage you to bring your checkbook. If you needed to bring money to the table, you should have been given an accurate amount, but just in case there is any kind of last-minute unexpected change to the numbers, if you have your checkbook with you and you need to cut a check to the closing attorney for the difference, if it's just a few $100s or even less than that, you have your checkbook handy. You don't need to go run off to the bank to take care of that. And then you also need to bring anything else that is specific to you and your transaction. A good example would be if you negotiated with the homeowner to purchase any of their personal property. That could be furniture items. You might need to bring a certified cashier's check made payable to the seller, for example, to purchase their personal property. How long should a closing take? My closing attorney generally gets things done in an hour. Worst case scenario, it really shouldn't take more than an hour and a half. If closing ever takes longer than that, it could be on a delay on the lender's side for funding and dispersing the funds, but I would go ahead and plan to allocate 1 to 1.5 hours for that process. Who is going to be there? Well, definitely you, the home buyer, you're going to be there. The homeowners, the sellers, they're probably going to be there too. Whoever your closing settlement agent is, whether it's an attorney or a representative from the title company, they will be there. Your real estate agent is going to be there. And sometimes you might also see your loan officer stop by for a portion or all of your closing. What are you going to sign? We're going to sign a lot of things, and Lord bless you if you have to sign as power of attorney for another purchaser. You're going to be signing a lot. But what you're going to sign on the day of closing is going to be documents from your lender and your closing agent, whether that's an attorney or a title company. Is documents that they generate that they need for you to sign. Some of those common documents are going to be the mortgage. There's going to be lending documents. There are going to be disclosures, super random disclosures that you need to sign. You also might be expected to sign a copy of your income tax return. If you chose to have a survey done, the attorney is going to present you with a copy and probably ask you to sign that. You also will sign your closing disclosure and your ALTA, which is a combined settlement statement. If you do not know what those documents are, a closing disclosure is a settlement statement that is specific to the buyer. The buyer has their own closing disclosure, and then the seller has their own closing disclosure. And it is an account of all the money coming into and out of the transaction that pertains to just the buyer. So the seller's items are not going to be on the buyer's closing disclosure. And then on the seller's closing disclosure, it's just those monetary items that involve the seller. There aren't going to be items on their CD. We call a closing disclosure a CD as well. There's not going to be items on the seller's CD that specifically and only pertains to the buyer. And then the ALTA is a combined settlement statement where they take the buyer's closing disclosure and the seller's closing disclosure and they combine everything into one. And again, it's basically like a reconciling of accounts of all the money coming into the transaction, and then where is that money being allocated afterwards. So what happens next after you sign all these papers? What is the next step? So your closing agent is going to send all of that paperwork to your mortgage lender. It's going to go to their closing department, and someone in that department is going to review those documents, make sure that they have been properly signed and executed. If there is an error or something got missed or a document didn't get signed, they might kick that back to your settlement agent and have you sign it. And once all the paperwork is accounted for, it's been signed and executed properly, the lender is going to go ahead and fund that transaction so that your closing agent can disperse checks, send money to pay off the seller's loan. They cut commission checks for the agents involved, and they issue checks or wires and pay any and all parties that are involved in the process. So now that your closing is over, what else do you need to do? Is there anything else that you need to do? Yes, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you keep copies of your closing paperwork easily accessible to you. You're going to need that for when you prepare your income taxes the next year. So if you're buying a home in 2022, when it comes time to prepare your 22 taxes, your accountant is going to need a copy of your closing disclosure and your ALTA so that you can try to take advantage of, any tax breaks that you might be entitled to. So you want to make sure you keep that handy. You should receive both a hard copy and maybe even a digital copy on the day of closing. If something happens and somehow you lose it, you can always reach out to your closing agent or to your real estate agent later on after closing, and they can also send you copies as well. Closing Moving day is 100% a moment to celebrate, but if you're early in the home buying process, this probably feels like a lifetime away. Maybe you haven't even decided where you're moving to yet. Click the video on your screen now, and let's get clear on how you can decide.